Over the last 2 days, we've been discussing how misinformation, efforts to undermine voter access, and the pressing threat of climate change are challenging democratic governance around the world. We now turn our focus to the ways in which Colorado is facing these dilemmas and how the state might be a leader in addressing them. Joining me now is the Governor of Colorado, Jared Polis. Welcome, Governor. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Fritz, it's a pleasure to see you, and I want to thank the Joseph Korbel School of International Studies for hosting this important conversation.
Well, thank you, and thanks so much for your time. Let me just start with this. As Governor of Colorado, how well do you think Colorado is tackling these challenges? And do you think Colorado can serve as a model for the rest of the country in ensuring an informed electorate and guaranteeing free and fair elections and tackling climate change?
That's a great question, and I'm very proud that Colorado is a model for the rest of the country in election integrity and voting access. In really so many ways, our election system in Colorado is the gold standard. We get to see that with our voter participation rate, our essentially non-existent fraud, and the way that we empower Coloradans to make their voice heard at the ballot box, including empowering our unaffiliated voters, which is the largest group of voters, to participate in the primary of their choice for Republicans or Democrats or neither. For many of us who live in Colorado, Fritz, it was somewhat amusing to hear the debate about mail-in ballots in the 2020 election, because this is how we've been voting as long as I can remember. When I was 18, 20, I think I remember voting in a polling place once, but generally speaking, you could request a mail-in ballot, and I always did, and then it became the default maybe a decade ago. And the great thing, though, is that if for some reason you don't trust the mail and don't want to vote that way, you still can go in on election day, and some people do that. So it's all of the above. We want to meet people where they're at. Our county clerks, Secretary Griswold, have done a terrific job. Our voting system is safe, secure. It makes voting convenient, especially considering that we vote on issues on our ballot. You vote yes or no on fairly complicated things. People want to read about those. They want to check their computers. They want to discuss them with their families. And we get a more informed vote because we let people vote the way they want to.
Yeah, I must say I moved from another state where this was not the case, and I find it incredibly sane. And as you say, it's wonderful to be able to study the ballot and think about it and then vote in a sensible way. Let me turning to sort of the challenges you faced as governor. What have been? I mean, you've been governor during certainly during COVID. I'm curious, what have been the greatest governance challenge you faced as governor?
We've really had two major sets of crises that I've had to manage and navigate as governor. One, as you indicated, was the global pandemic of COVID-19. States across the country largely were forced to fend for themselves in the early days to navigate the pandemic response, fighting for PPE and masks and gloves for hospital workers. I'm proud of Colorado. We have one of the 10 lowest death rates in the country from COVID, one of the highest economic rebound balances, and it's not been a fun time for anybody, but by working together and caring about one another, and of course now getting vaccinated, we've really come through this better than many other areas have. The other difficult challenge that I face has been fires. We had the three largest wildfires in the history of our state in the summer of 2020. And then just a month and a half ago, we had the Marshall Fire, the most destructive fire in dollar amount and lives upended. And so this has been an ongoing challenge with a warmer and drier climate, and one that we're working with our legislative partners and our local firefighting partners to rise to the occasion of.
Yeah, and I'm sure in meeting all of those challenges, it's so important to have a healthy democracy where people have trust in their government and are not just at each other's throats and all the time. Let me turn. We don't have much time, I know, but before you entered public service, you were a very successful entrepreneur, and I wondered what your thoughts are on the role of private industry in supporting and upholding democracy.
Well, for the business sector to succeed, for businesses to grow and hire and pay well, you need stability. And no system of government can provide more stability than democracy. And so the business community has a strong interest in maintaining the stability of our republic. And I hope that regardless of shareholders or executives' ideological leanings. They have a very important interest in protecting our democracy. And that's whether you work in the public or private sector, because a strong democracy fosters a strong and stable business environment for growth. And it's really in every business's interest to support the integrity of our democracy and the voting system.
Well, I know we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being with us. Jared Polis, Governor of Colorado.